Welcome back to the shop. I apologize for missing a weekend. Had another death in the family, so had to deal with family stuff. So not going to dwell on that. We're going to keep moving on and show you what I've been up to before I had to take off to deal with family stuff. So what you're looking at is nearly complete parts. The fuselage is complete at this point. It was definitely more difficult than covering the tailplanes alone. The tailplanes were pretty simple, but having the tail all assembled like this, it was a challenge. I had to do each side of the stabilizers individually and then had to piece little pieces together here on the tail. And you can see really closely here, there's a bit of a seam. And that's just the nature of this kind of covering. And I did not do a single sheet to wrap around the whole fuselage. I did each side individually to help perfect my technique in doing that. The bottom was a little bit more error prone because I did that first just because I knew that there were going to be issues. And there's a seam right here that I used a little bit of practice on, and the shrinking is a little bit not perfect. What's worth noting here on the shrinking is that the adhesive, the glue is in the wood. So once you go to like adhere the material to wood, if you use a heat gun, it's all gonna soften and it's all gonna shrink. So you kind of have to use like shielding, like a piece of paper or a piece of wood, a piece of cardboard or something to shield where you don't want heat to be. It's a little bit tedious, cumbersome, but that's what I found to make work. So that's the result of that particular ugly seam. Let me flip you back around a sec. Going in through the wing saddle area was pretty straightforward. Just wrap around and be able to just pull on stuff as you apply heat and make it stick. You did have to do some feathering cuts here, but I was able to get things in nicely and wrap around. Soaked pretty good with some dope, and it's all set. We're ready for paint. The fuselage is all ready for paint. I did do the hatch. The inside of the hatch has been treated with dope on this wood to help fuel proof it. And so that's ready to go as well. The tailplanes are hinged and assembled, as you can see. I used Dubro hinges here, and they work really nice. They're very smooth in operation. Let me get my cheat code for that. Now, recently I got turned on to this stuff called Rail Zip. Rail Zip is... It's specifically formulated for the model train hobby. It's for cleaning the train tracks that conduct electricity. They oxidize over time and they don't conduct anymore. So that's what this is initially intended for. However, in a number of models that I've restored, I find that the metal pins and hinges do corrode over time. Maybe it doesn't do it as prevalently in drier climates, but in my area, again, it's wet here. So as a preventative measure, to prevent those from corroding, I tried applying that to an old model, and it helped free things up. And then I thought, well, it's got kind of an oily something to it. So let's see if it protects from CA glue. So I did a little test piece and it works. So just hit a couple of drops. I use the Flexitips, these guys. The Flexitip just allows you to apply a precise amount, and it's just a couple of drops, literally a couple of drops, like maybe 2 drops from this tip, and then just work it into the hinge. Just work the hinge. And then I insert to the first hole into the slot, apply a line of glue on each side, and then push it in. Any residual like gooping of the glue, because I'm using medium CA, you can wipe away with a paper towel, but then just let it dry. Just let it dry, let it dry. And then once it's dry all the way, you can work the hinge, and there might be a little bit of residual film, but it will be around the rail zip substance. So really nice cheat code so that you don't have to worry about getting CA glue in your hinges and gluing your hinges closed. Super helpful. In addition to getting the fuselage entirely ready for paint, which I do have paint, it's in that bag, it's ready. And I also have some parts from the wings. So this is one aileron that has been covered, not doped. See how it looks very, very similar? Very similar, but not the same. I'll get to dope in a second, but I also have covered the servo panels. I found that when I was covering the outlets for the push rods, the material doesn't want to cut very nicely unless it's been doped. So that's why I don't have that removed yet. So I'm going to dope this first and then cut this out. The reason I don't have those cut out is because I'm going to paint first so I don't get paint inside the push rod hole and gum things up. And then, so let's talk a little bit about this. I haven't finished this yet because I haven't cut a piece of covering large enough for it, but you can see the ends that I've done first already. And that is so that I can just wrap everything else and not have to worry about those ends. And that's why I keep all of these scraps around. All right, so there's the other end, done exactly the same way. And then once this is wrapped around, I will apply a little bit more of the glue, the stick-sit, this stuff that I'm using, the balsa-rite. But any one of these is fine, but you do have to apply it over top of your seam here on this. I did do it here, but yeah, here. You apply it again over top of that so that it sticks. All right, so doping. Doping is one of those where you kind of can formulate it for what you want to do. A good overall formulation that you can play with to start, I was recommended a 1-to-1. So that means 1 volume of the dope and 1 volume of acetone to thin it out. You want to, so by thinning, I mean changing viscosity. So you're really playing with the finish of the viscosity. So if it's too thick, it'll look kind of slimy and droopy, kind of like you have runs, like you've used too much paint if you're painting a wall. These airplanes were not ever really like that. If there was, it was from actual paint. Because a lot of times, like some of these paint touch-ups were by the pilots in the field because mechanics were doing mechanic things, right? But for this plane, we're not going to worry about that. We're just trying to get as smooth a finish as possible. So that's why I stick with the 1-to-1. I did play a little bit on the bottom again because it's not really visible. Tried to go with thicker, using straight up dope even. And it's so thick that you can't get a nice even consistency. And it's very subtle, but it's there. So if you're doing a really nice model, just don't do it. Stick with at least 50-50, 1-to-1, however you want to formulate it. So there's not a whole lot left to do in terms of building. It's just covering, which is time consuming. So I've got to cover it and then dope it, and then I'll assemble the ailerons. I'm using the Dubro micro pin hinges rather than the flat pin hinges. Just do something different, and then we'll be ready to start painting. It's been very, very rainy lately. We got the remnants of hurricane, but it's that time of year where it starts raining and it's going to start getting windy now. It's October. So yeah, I'm going to say it. Building season is here. What flying I do will be pretty minimal. I'll try to get out and fly the Falcon because of the death in the family that I had to deal with. I did miss the event that I prepped the Falcon for. It's unfortunate, but family first, you know, it's the way these things go. So Thank you guys so much for watching. We do have, again, the Dubro Masterclass. I am doing the Dubro Masterclass again. It starts next week. So make sure you're following along on Dubro's Facebook and YouTube channels, and just follow along for a good time. We're giving away free stuff. We have a lot of fun. Brian is just such a good sport, and the subject is going to be great. You're going to learn a lot of stuff, new approaches to things, and we've had nothing but good positive feedback from the last season. I think this will add a lot of value to the brain in your head in this hobby. Make sure you're also checking out Dubro.com for all of your parts that you need for these builds. They don't grow on trees. You got to buy them. So go there and use code Josh10 at checkout for a little bit off. And until next time, keep building those flying works of art.